Welcome to the Research Studio, the place where we talk to current doctoral students involved in practice-based, practice-led or practice-informed research in the arts. My name is Dr. Mark Wilsher and I'm based at Norwich University of the Arts in the UK. I'm an artist and academic involved in doctoral supervision, and I want to use my experience of making artworks and exhibitions to think about the different roles that creative practice can play within academic research. My guest today is Noemi Gunea. Noemi is a Romanian model, artist, writer and actress based in London. She trained at the Conservatoire National Supérieur d'Art Dramatique in Paris and Central St Martin's in London. Together with Grace Lambert, she makes up half of performance duo Cheap Thrills, who were shortlisted for Bloomberg New Contemporaries in 2024 and longlisted as Best UK New Artist in 2022 by Saatchi and Robert Walters. Noemi's work has previously been shown at the Tate Modern, the British Museum, the Royal Academy of Arts, South London Gallery and Arbeit Gallery. Her work is a reflection of her experiences navigating through different cultures and perspectives, exploring the intersections of identity and community engagement. She hopes to inspire people to be brave, intentional and imaginative in their own lives and in the world around them. Noemi is currently in the second year of her PhD studies at Wimbledon College of Arts, where her current title is Between Actor and Apparatus, a practice-based inquiry into the pedagogy of post-dramatic theatre and performance. Welcome, Noemi.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
You're very welcome. It's great to talk to you today. I wanted to start by asking you a simple question, which is just to define this term for me, this term post-dramatic theatre. What does that mean exactly?
You're so good at pronouncing it. Most people understand post-traumatic. So post-dramatic refers to the theatre and performance that started emerging from the 70s that has displaced text from the centre of focus. So often it involves a higher focus on visuals, on technology, devising, or many different forms, but it's displaced text as the centre.
Okay, so it's not focused around the script or that kind of the storytelling aspect maybe.
Yes.
And how did you get interested in that in the first place? How did you come to kind of be working in this world?
Well, interestingly, actually, I'm from Romania and I went to drama school in France, and post-dramatic theatre is very common in Europe, but the UK has this very strong tradition of text-based work, so it's still very much at the fringes. One of the biggest, as they would call it, experimental theatre groups in the world is Forced Entertainment, a theatre company based in Sheffield that most theatre practitioners in the UK haven't heard of. So a lot of this work is very prestigious in Europe, but not that well known in the UK.
I guess in the UK it is often sort of comes under the umbrella of live art or performance art more than theatre, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And certainly I've seen, from what I've seen of your work, you are definitely operating in those realms, aren't you?
Yes. In Europe I would call what I do theatre, but in the UK I sell it as performance art or live arts.
Okay. And I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about the aims of your project. So one of the aims that you are kind of setting out for, and you're in your second year now, aren't you? That's right. Is that you are trying to uncover different kinds of pedagogic approaches to teaching this kind of post-traumatic theatre, and the ways in which they can include diverse and democratic interpretations of what an actor is. So maybe you could sort of unpack that a little bit and explain that a little bit for me.
Yes. So to introduce this a little bit, I graduated from drama school in 2014. So I've been working as an actor and performance maker for 10 years now. And most people I know are actors of different types. And a lot of them struggling in their careers. I never thought of myself as being an academic person. I'm a migrant, I'm neurodiverse, I'm quite trickstery. and I didn't think I would be able to express myself academically, but then I was on a newsletter when I was artist in residency with London College of Fashion. I was on a newsletter and I saw this studentship that was looking for somebody to create a toolkit to teach acting in post-dramatic theatre. And I thought this would be a project that I'd really be interested in doing, because I think I've managed a little bit to create a career in those lines, and I really want to bring this toolkit out, because informally I feel like I've been trying to deliver it to people that I know. Drama school seeks to create very homogeneous actors, people who have a very strong physicality, straight back, high nose, powerful, deep voices, versatile, easy to transform actors. That excludes most diversity. That excludes people who might be a bit quiet, or people who might be from different cultures, or different types of physicalities and abilities. So one of the reasons why post-dramatic theatre evolved in the first place was because the dramatic form doesn't really respond to our modern lives anymore. It doesn't respond to representation of our societies, and it doesn't respond to the linear imagination of history that we'd been sold for such a long time. So I found art school very liberating, because it is in a way the opposite of drama school. It's an opening to yourself and to self-knowledge and self-determination. And in this project, the aim is to combine conservatoire training and art school training, because of course there are still some qualities that you seek in being a performer that often we see fine art students not focus on, that connection with the audience, on somatic awareness and skills. So I think it's a matter of combining these two methodologies to create something that can help people work as actors. In live art, experimental theatre, but also in film. And so we're covering all of the different aspects of what an actor might be able to do, through a lens of entrepreneurship as well, how they can build a career that is relatively sustainable and focuses on creative well-being as well, because that's very timely.
Yeah. How currently, I mean, you're hoping to develop a toolkit or a way of educating new performers in this kind of style of work. Currently, how do people develop their skill? How are they taught right now? Do they have to teach themselves, or are there kind of existing modes in which they're taught right now in post-dramatic style?
I think most people go to drama school, and then they find that there's not necessarily a niche carved out for them, maybe because they have an accent that isn't easily castable, or because they have a look that doesn't necessarily respond to a deep archetype. So it's a matter of trying and failing for years, and of suffering from deep mental health issues, until people either give up or find a way to navigate their careers. But I think because there is not a stigma, but there's less of an awareness of alternative modes of performance in the UK, for a lot of actors it's seen as a failure to not be able to enter the mainstream. It's just a lack of awareness, because actually a lot of the actors within the mainstream have built their careers previously on doing things differently, inventing things for themselves. So I hope this toolkit can bring some information, but mostly what art school brings, which is self-awareness, confidence, and playfulness.
And have you got an idea right now as to what form this toolkit might take? Because I mean, toolkit is an easy word to say, isn't it? But it might be anything. It might be, you know, like a list of 10 points, or it might be a whole kind of multimedia package, or it could be anything, couldn't it? Have you got a vision of that right now at this stage?
Yes, I think it's mostly going to be a type of manual with some multimedia elements. The media elements are going to be a bit around critical thinking, and intertextuality, which is quite difficult when you're very young. And I found, because I'm neurodiverse, I found the internet to be a better teacher than most schools, because there's so much accessible content that teaches you economics, history, in a visual and really clear, easy read manner. I've used websites like Crash Course to learn about anything, and there's nothing like that for theatre, and especially experimental theatre the literature is so impenetrable that, of course, a lot of people give up, and particularly there's a lot of foreign students in the UK, so that's just completely off the table. Whereas what the content of these books is extraordinarily simple. It is based on play and subversion and silliness. So it's non-verbal iteration is really in the exercises that will be in the toolkit to try out different means, because in the end it is a pedagogical toolkit, but as with any life advice, there is no coherent plan that will work for everyone. You actually just have to go through all of the different possibilities until you feel somatically what works for you.
Right.
But I think it becomes an easier task if you see what are those possibilities. And actually, I feel very lucky that I ended up doing that for myself when I was younger, because there wasn't that much to do in Romania. So I ended up attending workshops, and I still have that spirit about anything. Meyerhold, Commedia dell'arte. I had a natural hunger to try out any kind of form, and that's the quickest way to define your own practice, I think.
This brings us on to kind of the subject of practice itself. So, so far in your sort of progress through the PhD schedule, if you like, you've been concentrating on new work and devising some new work and working especially with collaborators from different areas. And you performed a piece last year. And then again, so can you tell me a little bit about that? Maybe describe something about it, who you were working with, and that working process. It'd be fascinating.
So I went for an autoethnographic approach to say how do I go about composing a character or working on a piece, and also how do I approach a pedagogical / directorial relationship with collaborators that I've worked with. So I made a piece called Zen and Zeroes, which we showed in March at Camden People's Theatre as a work in progress, and then in October at Wimbledon College of Arts as a finished piece. And I worked with a non-professional actor, a professional actor, a musician, and a dancer. Because a lot of the toolkit will also be based on dancer methodologies like Pina Bausch or Trinity Laban, some of which are quite common in conservatoire training anyway. So I took a lot of notes on really the relationship between writing for yourself and then performing what you wrote and then directing, which is something that happens in so many cases of post-dramatic theatre. And then, yeah, directing everybody else. And the way I also took a 5-part improv course this year. And I use improvisation as a methodology for work. So in creating the show, I thought, who around me is looking to take a skill to a next level, who would benefit from taking part in this, and how could I create a circumstance where we would all be learning and we'd all be very invested in this, and it can become a celebration of our creativity. And thankfully my supervisor saw that. Called it life affirming, because it was the piece in itself is about wellness and financial wellness and the tensions between the disillusionment of communism and the desire to find utopic dreams outside of capitalism. So while the themes could be bleak, they are made hopeful by the investment of the performers. So there's a back and forth process of asking people what they would like to do, writing for them, then trying out, then rewriting, which is the method that again most post-dramatic companies that I know of use. And it's a very caring, community-driven, process-led method that I'm very passionate about.
Did you find that you needed to kind of coach your participants in improvisation, or were they all quite happy to sort of dive into that in the devising of the piece?
I think some of them were absolutely not at all. The musician, at one point I said, could you try screaming here? And he looked at me, he said, I can't scream. What do you mean you can't scream? Anyone can scream. I was like, no, I don't scream. Why would I scream? So I guess why these types of performance are profoundly about diversity and accessibility is that it's really bring what you have, bring what you want, and we'll make something from it. We'll make a soup because all vegetables go together. And that is the limitation that makes the creative process interesting, and that is what you read, I think, as an audience, as a meta text. You read the process. I was trying to write yesterday why the post-dramatic is an inherently political space, and it's precisely because of these ways of working. It's less that necessarily the topics or the themes that people investigate are political, but it's the way in which the work is made is so different from the director who's in charge and everybody tries to suck up to them, and then they cast the strongest animals. And
you're painting quite a picture of that traditional world of drama.
It is a bit like this, and you're nervous and shaking as you go to an audition, and they have the power to, provide for you for the next 6 months or not. Whereas, post-dramatic theatre that also often expands into cinema, into other disciplines, just flattens that.
Is it always devised in that mode then? Is it always kind of collaborative, co-creative, participatory?
More often than not. Practitioners like Robert Wilson, for example, who I really like, don't really have a lot of agency for performers.
No.
But that's because I guess he has a very strong visual style.
He's very much an auteur, isn't he, Robert Wilson?
Yeah. So not always. And he uses a lot of celebrities as well. So he's a great marketer. But then in the background, he does a lot of work for his community. And even in the devising process, he worked with children with disabilities. So a lot of the characteristics of his performances and of his shows are inspired by people he worked with.
Talking about Wilson makes me think also, that really makes me think of sort of scenography and the visuals and the kind of the sort of tableaus that he sometimes creates. Is that something that you're involved in? Does that kind of, is that another element of the pieces that you're making? And how do those come about?
Yes, so I guess the title of the thesis is Between Actor and Apparatus. And when we say theatrical apparatus, we mean scenography, sound, new media, technology. And I guess our desire, and I say our, me and my supervisors, is to bring an aspect of theatre design and practice into actor training. And to involve the actor more in this, in the visual side. So to make actors more involved in both costumes and set, and that can be through creating something very complex like Robert Wilson that involves projections, or it can be the opposite like Forced Entertainment do, where it speaks about mediatized society by removing everything and keeping just the body on stage.
And a glitter ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Classic Forced Entertainment.
Exactly. Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah. Okay. Can we just rewind a little bit? Because you're talking about when you were devising this piece and you're taking of an auto-ethnographic approach. Now, I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on that because I know lots of postgraduate researchers involved in practice-based research. They often go for, when they're looking around for a methodology, they often think, okay, yeah, auto-ethnography, that's for me. I can kind of analyse what I'm doing. How have you found that? How have you gone about it? I mean, and how have you kind of found that experience? Has it been useful for you?
Honestly, my first feeling towards it was a bit... my supervisor went through a document I wrote and took out all the I think, I believe, I feel, which seemed very feminine as well, that I wasn't able to make an assertion without saying, this is just me, this is just how I approach this, and accept that it's a strange tension for me researching the arts, growing up with such a differentiation between hard sciences and the arts, to say my experience is both meaningful but also not representative of everyone else's experience. So I think I've started this PhD strongly believing that I do have these useful coping mechanisms and useful experiences, particularly with a micro-neurodiverse background. I thought there's maybe more complexity or particularity there that people could draw from, but I still struggle with generalizing some of those things, which is why I tried to cover more terrain by working with different types of practitioners from different backgrounds as well. But there's no end to that, obviously. So I'm really trying to emphasize in the toolkit as much as I can that nothing is prescribed and everything is just exploratory, but fables can help position the reader into what they want and how they'd like to go about it. So there's a lot of self-helpy aspects to it. Like, I have a list of values and ask people to choose their values, because I think acting is actually one of the one of the professions where people go in it for vastly different reasons, but they don't necessarily want to connect to those reasons. So it's very difficult then to fulfill yourself if you don't know exactly why. What are you in for? Do you like the press conferences and dressing up nicely? Do you like doing endless amounts of research? Are you very analytical? Are you on your feet all the time and like playing? I think anyone is able to create a career, even if it's not always viable financially as an actor, but you need to be very honest with yourself on why you'd like to do it.
What have you discovered things about yourself through the autoethnographic process?
I think what I have as my values from that exercise that I was proposing to other people are curiosity, creativity, and play. So this is why I make work. So there's an aspect of always trying something new, rather than getting extraordinarily good at something. I really enjoy the process of failing and the process of failing in front of others, and the warmth that comes from that, the relatability.
I guess it's a different way of connecting with an audience, isn't it? Yeah.
And again, that's something that happens a lot in post-dramatic theatre, where there's a lot of actors that would come in front of you. I'm classically trained, but there's a lot of people who have very soft voices or a very shy physicality, and that is delightful when somebody's able to do that, but with the confidence of not trying to be somebody else. It connects us so much more to ourselves and to the work.
So that in the process of devising the work, are you keeping notes for yourself as you go along? Are you kind of stopping halfway through, sort of working with people and saying, "Oh, I just got to write this down," and make a little note to yourself? Well, how are you keeping along with what goes on?
I record and then use the transcript. I make awful little drawings. And sometimes not really for myself, but when I worked with the other performers, I take videos. I don't think I'll be sharing these as part of the thesis. I think I'll be sharing these in a discursive way because, but who knows? If my supervisors feel very strongly about it, I might. I don't really want to crowd. I want to use autoethnography as a means to getting to useful information, but I don't really want to make it all about me. I'm very shy still of that aspect, and I think I really scrutinize, is this useful or is it funny? I will be putting in the play script with all of the actors' notes, because I think that's really interesting. It not being a text that is based on kind of psychological coherence. The notes are very interesting, how people are able to access different cues. It differs so much. I was really surprised when I started working with the dancer, in terms of the actor would ask me, what am I thinking here? Why am I doing this? And the dancer would say, what is the smell of this? Is it fluid? Is it solid? So yes, I've made a lot of notes, but also because I think because I entered this as a studentship, I hadn't thought enormously about methodology, so I tried to cover myself on all bases and make as many notes as possible.
Just collect everything you possibly can.
Yeah, to then see what I need to use.
But equally, I mean, it's in the tradition, or in the kind of the ethos and the spirit of post-dramatic performance, that you are going to be going beyond just the written word, isn't it? So, I mean, there's been all sorts of people who have tried to put together and succeeded in putting together PhDs and theses which aren't just verbal, and they have kind of visual elements, and they have kind of visual essays in them, or parallel text and that kind of thing.
Yes, well, we'll definitely have the parallel text of the performance, because It's a text in, I think it's 9 scenes, and I wrote it to also be able to illustrate different ways of acting, and different ways of being on stage. So in a more contrived way, it is a type of masterclass showcasing all of these different ways of relating to text, to scenography, to sound, from myself and everybody else who is on stage with me. So I'm adding the filming. Thankfully, we have really great facilities at Wimbledon. So they did they recorded the performance with 3 different cameras, and somebody's editing it at the moment. So that is the central teaching for now, and the more verbal elements will come in the toolkit, and I guess in the student feedback after I do some teaching.
Yeah, okay. So that's coming up. Yeah, that's an opportunity for you to try out some of these ideas for your toolkit with students. Yeah. Have you got particular ideas you want to try with them now?
What I found interesting about some of the students have limited English. So that is perfect for this type of theatre because it doesn't need to be verbal at all. But I think I'll approach my first workshops through self-reflection, because they're in the beginning of this process, and I think when I did my master's, I didn't really, I guess it's just a different method, but I didn't really think of what I'm interested in. I just started making, and after 2 years I actually started piecing things together, and I guess it's a rock and roll way of doing things, very punk, very punk Britain. I personally think it would have saved me a bit of time if I just reflected on maybe a bit what you were saying about the students, on my background, on my interests, on my values. I think that would have led me in a therapizing way to find a direction earlier and avoid doing things that I thought would be more popular and would please my tutors or my audiences. Yeah, it's very cliched because I'm a millennial, but I'll be working a lot with Gen Zs, and therapy's all the rage. It's true, and sometimes I agree it's too much, but I think it's a really important first step to making work.
Yeah, I think it also chimes with the whole theme of, inclusivity and equity, doesn't it? Because we have to recognise and value what everyone brings to a collaboration, what everyone brings to a piece. And you can't do that if you're going to sort of dismiss people's views and values. You need to get them out on the table and discover what they are.
Yeah, and I think it really fosters originality, whatever that means. Even radical originality sometimes. And that's what I find exciting, actually, working with people who do not have English as a first language, is that often we might not have the same cultural understanding of things, not any of the same references. So I remember I was at an MA reading where this girl obviously hadn't done the presentation. She had a very extravagant outfit, a lot of makeup. She looked incredible, like Lady Gaga. And she'd done it with ChatGPT, but the way she was reading this text was a performance in and of itself. It was fantastic for reasons that she hadn't anticipated before she was doing it. And I thought that was really endearing, how through a lazy mistake, she'd clocked into something so unique and so individual to her that could be really the basis of the next 2 years of her work.
whereabouts are you now with the writing? So whereabouts are you with your literature review?
I have 9,000 words, but they're quite bad.
9,000 bad words.
9,000 bad words. Not all of them are bad, but I think, funnily enough, I'm really struggling with the dramaturgy of it. In general, I'm framing it as a post-dramatic actor prepares, as a remake of the famous An Actor Prepares by Stanislavski, that is still the Bible from which a lot of modern acting methods like Strasberg, Adler, Meisner evolved. So I'm keeping the chapters for that, but within the chapters, I'm really struggling with academic writing. Even though I'm going for simplicity, it feels like braiding. It feels like weaving many different thoughts, and I think the one place you can see neurodiversity in this podcast as well is I jump from idea to idea all the time, and I need to create a dramaturgical structure to help a reader actually make sense of that.
What's your kind of aim in terms of like word length for your thesis? Because you're going to have this toolkit, and is there going to be like a written component alongside that, like a kind of an explanation of everything you've done, or is it just a packaged toolkit which is your end result?
So I wrote it even in my registration that the way I work is in this trickstery way. So as of now, I tell myself I want to achieve the minimum number of words, 30,000. I do...
That's the institutional minimum. Minimum, right.
I do like being succinct in general. And I'm learning now the value of elaborating on some topics. I don't know how length is studied when it comes to, for example, the show is 1 hour long. I don't know how that counts within it. But what I would like is, besides the literature review, to have a printable paper toolkit that people can just have in their pocket with a series of exercises, journaling prompts, reminders, maybe an intermediate like calendar updates and little trinkets that help them structure the beginnings of their professional life. So I don't think that needs to be very long in terms of word count, but it will involve many different components. Mostly I'm looking at 3 main areas that are important for a person to know, which is somatics, which is connection with your body, your breath, development of movement and of self-knowledge, entrepreneurship, how you are able to position yourself with the world, what you do fills a need in society and in the market. I'm trying to humanize capitalism. I'm really did a lot of work about universal basic income, and I became really charmed by Paul Mason's writings, and he writes about post-capitalism, and he has a more a warmer and kinder view of what we could create from the ashes of capitalism without disrupting its entire structures, but with small minimal adjustments that we can already see happening, how we can make that mainstream. So I'm writing that from that perspective. And then improvisation, lightness of feet, not taking yourself too seriously, trying things out.
It strikes me that those 3 things, somatics, entrepreneurship and improvisation, they're all connected, aren't they? They're all kind of connected by a sense of agency and empowerment. Is that where the politics kind of lies? Yeah,
definitely. And where the representation and inclusivity lies. So if you felt that, and let's face it, a lot of people end up in these courses because they didn't get into RADA or they didn't get into Guildhall. And I think it'll be for their better. Because rather than spending 3 years hating on themselves why they can't achieve this objective standard that is actually not even that interesting. And one of the points I've tried to make in this is that also if you want to get into film, they don't want that anymore. That's not of the zeitgeist. You can spend 3 years exploring yourself, your creativity in a way that combines acting and art school, and then come out an empowered person who can shapeshift and change what they do and tick more boxes in the end.
Yeah, sounds like a great outcome. It strikes me as well that, I mean, one thing when it comes to examining PhDs, one thing that's often said is that the question that's being asked is this publishable? Could this be published as it is? And I can imagine that a toolkit or a kind of a workbook like you describe could easily become like a really useful publishable item that people would want to use as a little handbook in their own education or self-education.
Yeah, I hope so. I do hope so. I mean, I credit my supervisors for this because they came up with this project, and I'm a vessel that's trying my best to make it as useful and as good as possible. And I think I'm really grateful that was my entry point to it. And I'm grateful that I think studentships are fantastic because I think I see other people who have generated their own PhDs, and I think it's such a big undertaking. It's so energy consuming that being in service of something rather than fully the origin of it takes the edge off a tiny bit.
Do you feel less responsibility then?
I feel a lot of responsibility, but I don't feel that sense of authorship. I don't try to minimize the amount of I talk about myself, but I a little bit. And I'm grateful for that because I feel like it would be quite suffocating to focus it all around yourself and all around your practice, because it really triggers all of the insecurities.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because again, I think a lot of PhD students do get kind of, what's the word? They get so wrapped up in the connection between themselves and their personal identity and their project. They can cause problems, because they end up turning themselves inside out.
Yeah.
It's soul searching to try and find this mystical nugget of truth, which is the heart of their PhD.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe it's. I mean, I don't believe that necessarily has to be the case at all.
No.
I'm much more pragmatic about PhDs, I think, in my opinion. And it sounds like like you described, having that kind of distance from it as a project that you've been presented with is helpful, actually.
Yeah, I find it really helpful because I see it like a job. Like I've applied to a job with a cover letter. I did an interview, and people around me want me to do the job well, and I want to do the job well. But I guess it's a matter of already having that external validation. There's a need that is already proven, like you say. It's already proven to be of interest and publishable. So it's easier to fulfill a need than to ask yourself whether or not your being is useful.
Let me just finish off by asking you, is there something else I should have asked you? Or is there anything you particularly want to say about your whole process or your project or your hopes or fears for what comes next over the next couple of years?
I guess there is something that I would like to tell you that I haven't said before, which is generalized not just to performers, but I find that I've not experienced the British school system, but I hear from other people's description of it that it quite embodies that Pink Floyd enjoying turning people into similar-minded, similarly inclined, docile bodies, as Foucault says it. And while I think, honestly, that makes for a really easy society to live in, compared to Romania, where people insult you on the street. Here, everyone's kind, everyone's considerate. It's really great for kind of social cohesion. It's really bad for people's mental health and for their self-expression. And I think what a lot of actors find most surprising is that, and this applies to really anything on a personal level, if you follow your own interest, you will become a more interesting person, and you'll be able to live the life you desire for yourself. Anais Nin has this beautiful quote where she says she didn't look for a community, she wrote her first book, and then all that community and that love came to her. And I really enjoy this sense of communing through self-expression and letting others find you through the things that you love and define you through the things that you love. And a lot of actors try so hard to neutralize themselves, to show that they can act anything, they can do anything, to the point where they become uncastable because they're not inspiring in any way. We don't know anything about you. We know that you're a blank sheet, but a blank sheet does not make people come up with ideas. I recently saw Honora, and the main actress, actually two of the actors in the film was written for them. So what I would like to get out of this toolkit that is applicable to everyone is a reminder that we should get back to that small tribalism, emos, punks. We should deepen into our interest and into our quirks and not try to please everyone, and find joy in difference. Whereas now, even politically, we're so divided and so afraid to be around people that are different. I think this is the time to find the humor and the connection with people who are wildly themselves and wildly different.
Great. Well, that sounds like a brilliant way to end. Thanks for that. Thank you so much
Thank
for the
you so
conversation.
much.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.